So here we go. Dear Diary, today was Christmas. This was a Christmas from hell, rather. It was nothing it was nothing like, what you'd expect, like love, peace, and goodwill that you'd come to think about when someone says Merry Christmas to you. There was no love or goodwill, no peace anywhere to be found, and certainly not in the kitchen. By the end of the day, I thought that Mommy was going to kill Daddy. Daddy was going to strangle Grandpa, and Grandpa was going to rapture us all up to heaven. Uncle Davy arrived first, so hungover from a work party last night that he had to retreat to the study, lay down on the floor with the lights off, and asked me to bring him a Bloody Mary. And when I asked why he didn't get on the sofa, he said, "Oh, it's spinning too fast up there. It's peaceful here, and these tiles are nice and cool on my face." And Tootsie came through the door next, declaring that she was feeling unwell too, probably from a touch of food poisoning or heat stroke or something similar. Oh, that damn oven, Daddy's words, not mine, was installed for the holidays, but made everything so much worse because it was supposed to have been especially useful for occasions like this. That's what the instructions said. It's actually two ovens, one on top of the other, plus a convenient warming drawer. That's what the brochure said. But someone did something, and somehow both the ovens and the warming drawer got locked while there was a beef in the top one and a ham in the other. And, well, that was the first portent. Mommy came running into the living room to declare that the ovens had kidnapped lunch and it was holding it against her will. Daddy declared, "Oh, damn it, what the hell you got undone now?" "I haven't done nothing yet," she answered. "But you mess with me today and I'm going to find something to shrink or to scratch or to drop in the sink or your bath." "Get it out of your system, heathens," said Aunt Tootsie next. "Father Christmas soon come." She stirred a Bloody Mary with the tip of her index finger, and then she tasted it and added some more Tabasco sauce and queued for a turn of using the oven. My parents looked across the room and locked eyes, that thing they've been doing for years when they're sharing the same thought. I guess you do that when you've been married for as long as they have. We convened to our corners. The menfolk gave up on the oven and the women gave up on the ham and the turkey. Aunt Tootsie took a sip from another Bloody Mary. "God, that's hot," she said. "I downed that one too." Andy came through the door croaking, "Sup?" And I could tell from the sound of her voice that she was almost as rough as Uncle Davy, who was still face down on the floor in the other room. When my sister declared about a decade ago that she wanted to be called Andy and not Andrea, we all hoped that she'd start emulating Andy McDowell's style. But ever since then, she's been doing what Aunt Tootsie calls her K.D. Lang mode. Andy's friend hid behind her. She's a pretty girl with a pixie haircut and ripped jeans, and I knew right then we were screwed for Christmas. Needless to say, my father wasn't thrilled about a vegetarian Christmas lunch. Christmas in this house means two things: beef and ham, like his grandmother did. Christmas Day, and all we got to eat in this house is green beans, potato salad, and mac and cheese. "No," my mother said, "there's plenty of cake too. Try to go sit down." My mother can handle any crisis, by the way, except for father-in-law, and he came through the door next. Grandpa was trouble from the moment the little bus dropped him off from the Palms. He was ready for a fight even before he came in through the door, and tried to instigate one with the Buddha's head fountain with the water squirting out of it. "What at it?" "That's $1,000 from Figaro," said my father as Grandpa scowled at the big smiley face and hobbled past it slowly. The living room had just been repainted for Christmas in a lovely dusty rose color. I heard Grandpa mumble something under his breath about the devil's color under his breath. Mommy and Daddy did that thing again. The look, and the message crossed the air across the room like the balloon and like fake balloons in a comic book. "Everybody, this is Leah," Andy said. She was making her way around the room, introducing her guest. We have always had lots of guests for Christmas, but, well, today something felt different today, and I could feel myself sweating. And I said a prayer, because Grandpa would see through this story. He just had a knack for putting two and two together and coming up with 69. "Jeans, they're torn," he said, pointing at the exposed knee peeking from very expensive jeans. "What do you say her name is?" "Leah, sir," the poor girl smiled and stuck out her hand. "Leah? Leah? Like Leah Marioff to Jacob in Deception?" Oh, Leah smiled. She's really very sweet looking, and somebody should have warned her not to engage with our grandfather and wear a dress and cover her hair and forego that lipstick. Mommy returned from the kitchen to referee and shot Daddy another coat of it. "No, like the Star Wars princess, Grandpa," answered Andy for her. "Or that woman from TV who took on Scientology." Oh God, and we were off. "Sin, sin, sin. Everywhere I look, I see sin. This place done up like a bordella, and you women folk. What the hell do you now?" My mother was back in the room, ready to defend the red paint on the walls. "If you'd done your duty as a wife and a mother, then none of this would have happened. My grandpa clearly had a death wish this morning. I guess if suicide is against your religion and you feel it's time to end it, this would be how you go about getting yourself killed. Because my mother, she widened the distance between her feet and planted them soundly onto the floor and stood there. On the other side of the room, Daddy was rediscovering his faith because he shut his eyes and he looked like he was praying for invisibility. Look, yeah, I had enough of you today. This witch here, this witch, she see mashed potatoes from a box and spam and jello in your near future. You feel me, old man? Damn, fell out of somebody's mouth. But Grandpa missed that. He was too busy scowling at Mummy, who was by then standing over him with a pair of tongs in her hand. Oh, then her face and voice changed and she spun around. Leah, you come so sit by me. She grabbed the poor girl's hand, who by now she looked like she was headed to a dentist chair. And he says using fun governance. What is that exactly? My mother is really very good at entertaining. She knew to get the poor girl to talk about something familiar would keep her from bolting out of there. The dining room had also been done in that same dusky rose. And, well, Grandpa was looking, complaining, commenting. My mother ignored him again. I'm sorry, everybody. We had a little mashup in the kitchen. We're going to do something different this Christmas. We're going meatless, she said. And she had that don't mess with me smile back on her face. Meatless? Daddy said. Even the ham? Even the ham. Well, I thought I smelled something burning, said Grandpa, suddenly emboldened again. I thought it was sage or croton leaves or something you was doing in that Christmas coven. And I wasn't going to eat nothing but a cloven hoof anyway. What you smelled was burning cloves from the ham, answered my mother through her clenched jaw. And she went back to ignoring him and returned her attention to Leah. But there's plenty of food to go around. You girls should be fine. Andy, didn't you tell me your little friend was vegan? Wiccan, Mummy. I said she's Wiccan. So Wiccan, that means, oh yeah, that means you eat eggs and fish, right? Isn't that what it means? Aunt Tootsie had been lying back with a cold cloth over her eyes. Why she chose this moment to join us, I'll never understand. A what? Wiccan, repeated Auntie triumphantly and sat back to watch the entertainment unfold. Oh, she knew what she'd done by then. Grandpa stood up unsteadily and took a deep breath like he was going to recite Deuteronomy. But I hope you people are happy. He started pointing to my parents with one at a time with a fork. Happy with what your lives have become? And you've taken the Christ out of Christmas and lived a liberal lifestyle. Or what? Asked my father. You heard me. False idols at the front door and yoga retreats and orthotics and shoes and aromatherapy. Better repent today, or your children might never know the way and find their way back to the truth. They might already be doing obia on their lunch breaks. For all you know, repent, or they'll end up liberals, or they'll end up secular humanists in mini skirts and high heels, or they could end up a lesbian or two. He lowered his voice at the last word, lesbian, the way that old people in Cayman always do when they're talking about anything that requires a physician or an exorcist. Wait, this from a man who had an affair with his second wife while he was still living with his first? My mother practically spit this out. Her fist pushed into her side and she widened her hips again. And she did that thing that everybody in Cayman knows is local sign language for a declaration of war. Too late, said Andy, raising from her chair and going over to Leah to put a hand on her shoulder. Poor Leah looked like she might pass out. And practice makes perfect. She shot Grandpa a defiant look across the table. Oh, please, God, I thought, get me out of this house right now. Wicca? Asked Grandpa. Obia? Lesbians, said Andy as she winked at Grandpa and squeezed Leah's shoulder. Oh, God, said Leah, and put her face in her pretty little hands. And then there was a loud bang, and we looked across the dining room to see the set of double doors that had just been installed open and drop onto the floor. Uncle Davy was standing in the open doorway. He had come through those double doors and pushed them as usual, forgetting that the new double doors were, the new kind that pocket doors. You slide them and you don't push them. So have a Christ, said Uncle Darren, cradling his aching head. I'd like to go back to the Palms now, said Grandpa, standing. I figured the best thing I could do to save the day was honor my grandfather's wishes. I led him out of the battlefield by the arm and grabbed my car keys. You want some diabetic ice cream? I asked, forgetting what day it was and everything would be closed. No, just get me out of here, please. We drove in silence. Grandpa had never been so happy to see the double doors of that rest home. He could barely contain his happiness, and I drove off slowly, not so eager to return to the carnage, but not knowing what to do next. The house was deserted on my return. I was worried for a moment that something even worse than lunch had gone down while it had gone. Uncle Darren had moved from downstairs to upstairs, and he was dying a slow death from overindulgence in the guest room. I asked him where my parents were. Oh, try that spot outside, he said. Just leave me here to die in peace. I left. The pergola out in the backyard is the only part of their property that hasn't been remodeled. It's a concrete slab with 4 columns and cross beams, and it holds a variety of pendulating orchids, ready to hit you in the head when the wind picks up. Everything was painted white, but that could change any day now too. There were 2 benches. One faces east, and the other faces west, so that they can enjoy sunsets in the backyard. And there were my parents, sitting there, heads together, holding hands, just watching the sun go down. As far as special calendar days go, this was a ruined Christmas. But there they were, 2 old Caymanians, sitting like everything had gone off perfectly, and there weren't the cremated remains of 2 small animals in a double oven, waiting for their final ride to Dixie. I considered trotting across the garden to deliver a can of bug spray, but I thought the better of it. That's the thing about old people on this island. Even in bad times, they seem to manage just fine. Love is not enduring and forever. I just hope that they're this in love the day after Boxing Day when it comes time to choose and pay for that new oven.